We're live, Warden Danielson.
We'll call the meeting to order, and if you could do a roll call, please.
Warden Danielson.
Present.
Councillor Moffat's not with us today. Councillor Roberts.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy.
Present.
Councillor Burton's not with us today. Councillor Ryle.
Present.
Councillor DeVolen.
Present.
And Councillor Shell.
Present.
Thank you.
We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Halliburton is located in Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of the lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda for today, please? Councillor DeVolen and Councillor Shell.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that the April 13th, 2022 Haliburton County Committee of the Whole agenda be approved.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Is there any notice of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, we'll move on to delegations. And today we have Janine Mitchell from the city of Kawartha Lakes, who's going to tell us about an interesting proposal for transportation in the county. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning. So would you like me to start then?
Yes, you can just go ahead.
I have to say it's always a pleasure to join County Council Committee of Whole. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to this project. We're really quite excited about the potential to provide increased access to participate in either stability support programs and services or employment related programs and services, and in the continued partnership and collaboration that we have with service providers. So a little bit of history is that we completed our first full year of the employment services transformation. The first year was really a period of transition as the province, the service system manager, Fleming College, and also us human services. We're all implementing the program simultaneously while the program itself was really being fully developed. So that made it for a year where basically you were just almost like you can say getting by and getting the work done. But now that we're into our second year, we're all looking at more opportunities and how we can do this better now that we have a better idea about what it is we're doing. Shanti Rajanath, she's the director of workforce development. Her name is Rajaratnam. She's the director of workforce development for the service system manager. And it was actually she who identified a need to look at how we can both increase access to service, get people to training, and reduce the costs associated with transporting people to the employment related programs and services as it's quite costly in the county of Halliburton, and a significant amount of their funding that they have was being used to support that. So she approached Gina Robertson, the executive director of Search, with an idea for a possible solution, and between the two of them, the transportation pilot was born. Then they then brought human services into the mix to see how we can all partner together and benefit from using these services. We personally in human services have had significant success partnering with Search for employment-related programs prior to the employment services transformation. Search is often quite innovative, and they're also very open to trying different things and trying different projects. And when they're looking at solutions that both support the person and meet a need in the county. As an example, the Cook It Up program was one of our first really strong partnerships that we had with them, and it's been extremely successful in providing hands-on training, and participants were often able to obtain employment just knowing that they were participating in this program. That's how successful it's been. So the project supports the priority areas identified in the county's community safety and well-being plan as well, specifically poverty and employment and access to the health system. And it's an innovative approach to increasing that access to service. It is a pilot project, so they're keeping it small, and they're really doing a lot of monitoring and measuring to look at the success and how it is working, and if it is really making a difference, if the cost benefits are there, in order to determine if they're going to continue it. We are using it as a pilot, and there's actually an interest for us to see if this is also something we can do in Kawartha Lakes if it works out and is successful in the county of Haliburton. So currently, the pilot project can support a number of training programs that are offered through SEARCH. SEARCH has almost like a menu of programs and services that they are prepared to offer, and it depends on how much interest there is or the time of the year as to what program or service they're going to do. They're really they're referencing it as a first step program because it might be the first steps for someone to learn about working in retail, the food service industry, and the newest program is carpentry, and that's actually been quite successful with the work they've been doing. But they're also willing to look at additional training programs for other appropriate work areas that are in high demand. So those will also be considered. For the human services piece, we are looking to access transportation to support people to access stability support programs as appropriate. It may be transportation, for example, to attend a free income tax clinic, which then supports a person accessing all the financial benefits available to them and provides an ongoing source of income for them if they're eligible for HST or other tax credits and things like that. The transportation is coordinated between the three service providers as we work to make the best use of the time when the van is available. We're really trying to work out routes and plan to pick up this person and this person to bring them in. And if we're doing that, can we bring in this person? We're trying to really take the best advantage of this. The other difference as well is the person who's driving the van is also knowledgeable about programs and supports and services that are available in the county of Halliburton. So while they're maybe making that 40-minute drive into Halliburton to attend a program and they get to talking and they're talking about other needs they might have, there's also an opportunity for that person to say, well, actually, then you might want to connect to this organization or to this service, or were you aware of this? So that's an added benefit to the programs and services. The intent is to support people to access longer term solutions to transportation issues. So also while they're driving or while they're participating in programs, they're also developing relationships, getting to know more people. So there may be opportunities to look at ride sharing to support people being able to continue employment. And it's also about getting employment, really connecting that person to all the services that are available. And we actually happen to be co-located for a few of the services, the employment services, and then of course, stability support. We're co-located with the training. So there's a lot of opportunities for connecting that way as well. So as I mentioned, this is a pilot. We're really looking to see the success of the program, and we're monitoring and adjusting as necessary. It's a little bit slow to start for the stability support. However, it is so new and we have to see how it all fits in. And I had excitedly shared this news with Mike Rudder. We do try to keep him informed of programs and services and things happening in the community. And it was so nice because he was just as excited as I was about this opportunity and asked me to share the information here with the county. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. We'll go over to Mike, and Mike can talk about how this will work for people here and for the county as well. And then we'll look to questions from either one of you. Do you want to go ahead, Mike?
Sure. Thank you very much. When Janine contacted me and told me about the program, it was very timely because we continue through the community safety and well-being process or the development of the plan to hear about the transportation or the transit challenges in the county. County Council has been investing $50,000 per year for the last 4 years, waiting for a model or a service delivery model that would work in the county of Halliburton, and we continue to investigate those. So when Janine contacted me, I thought it was a really unique opportunity because you'll recall that we you can't access gas tax funding for the first year of operation, but you can after that, based on ridership and other things, you can access gas tax. So it's a way potentially for us to enter into that program and develop that partnership with the province that could grow over time. It's a really interesting pilot. I know that County Council, when you talked about a transit system, the employment was a really important consideration. And I think this addresses some of that, as well as some of the workforce challenges that we're seeing in the county. We often hear that businesses are struggling to find skilled employees. I thought it connected a lot of dots, and it may be something that, being a partner in it gets us access to ridership data that we could probably use to access gas tax funding in the future. And potentially grow a program or have it evolve to provide other services as well. So that led us to the staff report, which is recommending a contribution of $20,000. That is fund. We're recommending that be funded from the transit reserve, which has just a little over $200,000 in it with this year's contribution. So it would have $180,000 after that.
Janine, one question that I would have is specific to the driver. It sounds like a rather unique position in that they're a driver mentor in essence. So I'm just wondering about the kind of qualifications and the suitability for that role.
Thank you, Warden. Well, actually, the hiring of the driver took a bit longer because they were looking for so many specific qualifications, and it also meant a difference in pay for that position. And they also really needed to know County of Halliburton well and the programs and services. So there were quite a few qualifications that they were looking for when they did hire that person. And the program itself, I believe, we had to wait until we did get that. That was basically what helped us start the program, because we needed to have that driver in place. There are quite a few qualifications for it, but we really think that's the best fit. And that was actually from Gina Robertson. It was her concept to do that, and how it would really benefit services in general and the people for those long rides.
I'm looking for questions or comments from council. Councillor Roberts, then DeVolen, then Kennedy.
Okay, thank you. When I saw this and read it, it just so exciting because we've been struggling with transportation for a long time. And one of the big questions was if it wasn't door to door, then how would it work? If it was sort of bus stops, as an example, if it was at the Haliburton town dock, but still somebody lived a kilometer away and it's February and it's, minus 25, it still makes it very challenging. So, and this is exactly what we're trying to target, was so people could get to work. I love the marriage of this, finding a need and the service matching that. And Search just continues to think, it's a phrase, but outside the box. One of my favorite places to go for lunch and buy food in general is the bistro. I mean, it's just amazing, and it's a social enterprise. So eat well, feel good. So this is just great. I'm really, really supportive of this. And I have every hope that it will be a successful pilot and hopefully continue.
Councillor DeVolen.
Well, I'm excited on a couple levels. First of all, I spent a couple of years the last term of council trying to do something with transportation, and to be able to do that with something that begins to address some of the failings of our labor market woes for $20,000. It's a pretty cheap ticket to get our toe in the water on a couple of levels there and see if it's can be successful on a much larger scale going forward. And I have great things to say about Search and what they do for us. At the same time, I'm going to be the grumpy old guy. It's a complete failing by Fleming and those that should be standing in this void for education as it relates to the trades for our region. And that's no disrespect to the people that are involved in the arts part of it, because I love it. But to me, that's one of their primary raison d'etres for being in a region.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, I fully support the $20,000 contribution. It's something that we've talked about long and at length about. I'm trying to remember what Councillor Moffat's favorite person is Margaret or Martha, trying to get her to town. Pardon?
Mabel.
Mabel. Write it down here. So we got to get Mabel to town to do whatever, and then at the same time from Carnarvon, and we got to get somebody from Harcourt. So I'm really interested in. I think this is an excellent value to take a look at the problems of the logistics, the size of this county, and trying to get people in, 6 people into work at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you work that one out from all over the county. So I think it's money well spent, and looking forward to the results and ongoing. Hopefully, we get ongoing updates on the program as it proceeds. Thank you.
I'm not sure it's actually getting 6 people to work, but getting 6 people to a program that will prepare them for work. Correct, Janine?
Yes, that's correct. And then, during that conversation, they may try to work out ride shares and how to access more long-term transportation solutions. But yes, but it's also thought that if they can get the employment, they can then be able to afford perhaps a vehicle or the transportation costs to get them to work. That's the goal as well.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Royale.
Yeah, I think this is an awesome program. First off, I mean, enhancing skills is something that I've been fighting for a long, long time. And it was clearly defined as an issue in the BRNE that was done by the county in 2011 and again by the Highlands East in 2017. But what the Highlands East one did identified just what we're talking about right now. It wasn't just the availability of the training itself, it was getting people to that training. And it identified that as a separate line item within that particular BRNE. So my question would be, for instance, if we were to say, for the sake of argument, and if we were to say, for instance, have a contractor who had heavy equipment and he was located in a less than commutable distance in terms of local to the Halliburton village or one of our, and he had to, and we had to take people out to there, and it's not one of the campuses. Would this kind of a program assist in that? Because that was one of the challenges. Is if we have somebody that's got a construction site 15, 20 kilometers from any of our local villages, would we be able to get the people there to take in that training? And secondly, if we found that it would make more sense for a group of people, say for instance, in any given part of our county, say in Algonquin Highlands, where the predominant group would be from there, rather than come all the way into Halliburton, could they be brought to a spot in Algonquin Highlands or Highlands East or anywhere else for that matter within the county, and not be locked into some of the harder regiments that we have where you have to go to Fleming College? And that was one of the biggest challenges that the BRNEs that I got involved with said, like you want it from a central location, but oftentimes that's not the best place for the training to take place. So we need to get the people to wherever the best place is for this people to be trained. Would this program acknowledge that and take it into consideration?
That's a great question. And it's something that we've talked about. So Shanti from Fleming College is actually really, one of her other goals is to actually have trainings and services available more locally in the communities. Because we just finished the first year, that's something that's likely going to take a little bit more work, and she has to see, and a little bit more research in order to see what the data is, and also to see the success of this program. This particular program really is tied to search, and so where search is coordinating all of the training programs. However, we are looking at where else can those programs and services be offered in the community especially based on the specific employment needs in that community, because that might be more of a regional thing or a community thing about what's available in the community. So they are looking at that. We're just not ready with anything yet, but they are definitely looking at that.
Mike, did you have a comment?
I did. I guess I think that the really interesting thing about this pilot is we're not sure where it will take us eventually, but at least we are doing something where we're gathering data and seeing what the use or the demand is. And there are other things we can do in the meantime to look at how the service could be expanded or evolve into something else. And the Director of Economic Development and I met with a group who are piloting on-demand transit systems based on really sophisticated algorithms and technology that predict routes and demand where people will want to be. They believe in a rural community like this that could be really a really valuable tool. So there are things we're monitoring that we may be able to marry with a program like this, or even just with data like this that we can that comes from this. I mean, that we can use to develop further develop this or develop something else. So I think we're not sure where it will take us at this point, other than we have a really trusted partner who's delivering a really needed service in the community right now. But I really think that this is, there is potential to see a real evolution of transit in the county using this as a springboard.
Councillor Rael.
So basically what we're saying is that what I was talking about could be a phase 2 or a phase 3, probably won't be in phase 1. But having said that, you can't get to phase 2 or 3 if you don't get through phase 1. So I think we got to go through with this, at least that's my opinion, if we want a shot at what I was talking about, which is in 2 and 3. So I strongly support this.
Well, I'm hearing overall support for the program and for our contribution and partnering. The only question I've got, Mike, is that I see our resolution is, oh no, it's okay. So could I have a mover and a seconder for the resolution, please? Councillor DeVolen and Councillor Rael.
By Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives the April 13th, 2022 Rural Transportation Pilot Project Participation Staff Report, and that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that a $20,000 financial contribution be made to this pilot project to be funded from the Transit Reserve.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks so much, Janine. We look forward to seeing how this works for us.
Thank you all.
Okay, next is the adoption of minutes from our previous Committee of the Whole meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors Roberts and Kennedy.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Be it resolved that the minutes from the March 9th, 2022 meeting of Haliburton County Council Committee of the Whole be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up is correspondence from Roma.
Can I just maybe speak to that quickly?
Absolutely. I was going to ask you to do that very thing.
Councillor Saini, who sits on the Roma board, asked me to just bring this up to County Council and just remind everyone. I know I've circulated it to your local CAOs, who I believe circulated it to everyone, but just to ask everyone if at all possible to attend a zone meeting. We're at a really pivotal time, and they would like as many elected officials from across the county to attend that meeting and hear that conversation. So I now can check that box and say I've done what she asked me to do.
Thank you. Councillor DeVolen.
Mike, do you think our zone, I have a conflict? Do you think they'd mind if I went in one of the other zones to attend it, as opposed to the zone that is applicable to us? Or should I ask Councillor Saini?
She might be a better person to ask that question. I'm not sure what the.
And I will tomorrow. Thank you.
Sorry.
And I'll share that with the rest of County Council.
Yes, thank you. I'm in probably the same predicament as you are tonight.
Yeah, me too. But we'll do our best. So I guess we have a resolution to receive that correspondence. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillors Shell and Roberts.
Moved by Councillor Shell, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the April 1st, 2022 correspondence from Roma.
All in favor? That's carried. So next up is roads. We'll bring our Director of Public Works in. Morning, Robert.
Morning, Warden. Good morning, committee. So first up, we have our standard status report. I can note on capital projects that we're in good shape, having everything awarded, and we're just have one large tender left to close at the end of the month for pavement markings. And so the construction will be starting up after we have startup meetings and finish executing documents. On the maintenance side, we have our summer maintenance schedule has started this week, so that's a good sign that we're maybe out of winter if we're not in Winnipeg. And and so yeah, staff will be working that 4-day work week from Monday to Thursday to start doing all our summer maintenance activities. I could also note under the purchases, we did do an RFP, joint one with Algonquin Highlands for pickup trucks. The price just came in too high for us for this year. It was over 50% over budget and didn't meet some key specifications. So staff are recommending that we just defer this one purchase this year. And we're working with the fleet that we have. We appreciated that council approved our last tandem truck that was about $30,000 over budget. So that's maybe a highlight on this one, but we think prices will stabilize and we can get the equipment we need at a later date.
Let's keep our fingers crossed that happens. Any questions on the status report for Robert? Councillor Roberts?
Just of note that the digital radar sign is up on County Road 21, just around the Tim Hortons. And anecdotally, it works. I'm telling you, everybody just all of a sudden, why is everyone slowing down? Oh, because it's flashing red, So, I don't know that they're meant to be doing that, or we talked on and off about these over years, but it does seem to slow traffic down. And the other thing I just want to ask about is not necessarily on here, but it's roadside cleanup. And so it's, as it's April and we see all the incredible litter and garbage that's on our roadside. I participate in a county, my neighborhood adopted a section of road and we're going to be doing ours on April, I think it's 24th or something like that. And I wonder if it's just a good time of year through maybe our other channels to support that program or promote that program to see if someone wants to adopt a road. And, Robert, you're still fairly new at the county. And so, it's sort of gone on and off as it's been a program over the years. And I just think it might be something that the county might want to promote and let people know that we offer this program. There's a policy around it. You get signage. I'm going to be contacting you about borrowing some safety vests for that weekend. So just something to think about as we see all the litter, sadly, that ends up on the side of the road this time of year.
Right, no, excellent suggestion. And I'll discuss it with Scott and Tracy and look at maybe we can put out some social media. Well, we did work with some groups last year with COVID and different restrictions for some of the areas that did have adopt the highway type sections to help clean up. So definitely a good idea to clean up things after a messy winter.
And thanks for that reminder, Councillor Roberts. I know it's really good to see that there are people out already, picking away and trying to clean things up, and we can't thank them enough for that effort. If there are no more questions about the status report, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Kennedy and Ryall, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that the April 2022 status report on capital projects, operations, and roads maintenance be received for information by Haliburton County Committee of the Whole.
All in favor? That's carried. Are you going to tell us a little bit about Lower Cup Lake Culvert and replacing that?
Okay, sure. This is, council may remember, this was a project that was actually scheduled for last year. And staff decided that we'd like to defer it. We came to council in August with a request for some additional studies to actually pin down a better long-term plan for the rehab. Those results have come through. We've come in about half $500,000 under budget with changing the type of scope and type of work that's being done. So we're recommending that this contract be awarded to Premier North, their local company out of Huntsville. It's mostly handwork. We did have a little bit of concern over the prices, the spread in this one, but it does match up very well with the consultant's estimate of the budget going in pre-tender. So it is kind of handwork, and we believe that maybe the other contractors didn't fully understand the work and the location. So that's why we're recommending this award at this time.
Questions, Councillor DeVolen?
A comment, not a question, Robert, but the misunderstanding of scope of work is one explanation. The other explanation, there may be many people and their companies that don't particularly like doing handwork. So that might be reflective in prices too, that, you know, work that can't be done with machinery anymore is becoming a rarer and rarer bird.
Yes, no, for sure. And council might note, we only had 3 people bid the job. So similar to what you're saying, Councillor, that it wasn't as attractive a project as our other bridge projects.
Councillor Rao?
Yeah, I kind of, I'm just having a bit of a hard time. If you don't know, then that's fine. I don't have a real problem with it. But I mean, to not understand the scope of the work and be out by $800,000 strikes me as being somebody that really has no idea what they've been asked to do. I mean, you could be out $100,000, but when you're out $800,000, was there anything in that particular bid that struck you as being just completely off the wall or whatever? Because it's $800,000 is a lot of money.
Right. Well, it could be that they didn't visit the site. We don't have a requirement for them to visit the site. It is a large culvert. It's over 7 meters wide and it's 6 meters deep. Sometimes contractors are worried about the water flow. You can get into a lot of issues. And we do, most municipalities in contracts do put a lot of onus on the contractor to manage the water. And so that's, you know, for staging and whatnot can get rather costly with pumps and whatnot to make sure that the workers are protected and safe. So that there's a wide range. And even if we recall back to the structures projects that we just awarded last month, there was an $800,000 or more, $1 million difference on some projects. It's just that we had more bidders that were closer together that made us more comfortable. But if you looked at the spread from the low to the high, there was quite a spread there as well.
Any other questions? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to move this project forward? Councillors DeVolen and seconded by Councillor Kennedy.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole received the April 13th, 2022 staff report, rehabilitation of the Lower Cup Lake culvert. And further, that Haliburton County Council award the contract for the rehabilitation of the Lower Cup Lake culvert on County Road 648, contract 2022-7-C to Premier North Limited for the bid amount of $477,266 plus applicable taxes. And finally, that staff be directed to present a bylaw to Haliburton County Council authorizing the warden and CAO clerk to execute the agreement.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Robert.
Thank you.
Next is the a report on emergency services. We'll bring in Chief Waite to give us his year-end report. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Warden, members of council. If I may, Warden, I just had a question. I don't see it on the agenda. I was wondering if you're also expecting a report on our ambulance service review.
If it's not on the agenda, it's not
Okay.
something that you'd have to do, but we might want to hear that at our council meeting.
Okay, yeah, we'll save it for council. Perfect. Yeah, through you, Warden, if I may, we've put together our year-end reports. I'm not sure, do you want me to go through it page by page, or is there any questions regarding any of the information inside it? Or?
Well, if you wanted to just touch on some of the highlights, and then council can ask questions.
Okay, perfect. Just as per the first page, I think it's the response times. the last couple of years, we haven't met all our targets. And so for 2021, we did meet all our targets. And I think that's generally a good reflection of the Tory Hill base being staffed at 24 hours. So I think that's a very positive goal that we've achieved. If we go to the next page, we look at our call volumes, and interesting, we're up approximately 16%. I know I did a previous report, I said it was 14%. Math was never my forte, so when I crunched the numbers the second time for the annual report, it looks like we're up like 16% in patient contact and patient carried calls. And overall, when we put the standbys in there, we're about 13% increase in call volume. The Haliburton base, again, continues to be our busiest base, but keep in mind, there's 2 truck staff there 7 days a week. So that just increases the number of calls that are associated with the Haliburton base. If we look, we go to the next page and we look at patients that we attend to by age. You can see that it's our seniors that are our priority of the number of patients. And yes, there is the 100-year plus. There's the odd one we get. Some years they're there, some years they're not, but they do exist out there. And it shows 9 on our chart, but that might be the same person several times that we've seen. So, and again, I just put in the cross-border calls that we do. We have calls that are other services do in our area, but we do a lot of calls in the other jurisdictions. A lot of the times, because we've done a transfer into Peterborough or Lindsay, then we end up being the closest car to a 911 call. If we look at our vehicle costs for 2021, again, I think the big one that stands out for me is fuel costs. We were fairly significantly over budget in fuel costs, but that's associated with certainly the rising cost of fuel near the end of 2021. So that's why we increased our budget for that this year. Then we look at the next page, which is page 6, which is our COVID response. We staffed the assessment center for over 2,600 hours with staff to assist with that over the 2021. We vaccinated well over 200 homebound patients, and we also assisted with vaccine clinics through the year. So those are all extras on top of what our normal routine would be for a year. Page 7, I just broke down the top 10 primary problems that we see. And again, if anyone's adding up the percentages, it doesn't add up to 100% because there's other primary problem codes that are smaller percentages, but I only included the top 10. And again, our number one call is an interfacility transfer. And a lot of that's associated with CT transfers for CT scans for diagnostic imaging to Lindsay and Peterborough. So for the year, I think one of our big accomplishments, we were able to, with Safe Restart money, keep Tory Hill staffed 24 hours a day. We did purchase our new ambulance. All of our training has been online for the last couple of years. And one of the big goals that I think I have to really commend our Deputy Chief Jim Young for is he's been able to access and maintain adequate PPE for us throughout this entire pandemic, especially at the beginning when a lot of places were experiencing shortages in certain PPE equipment, such as N95 masks, but we never ran out. So, and now we have tons of them. So we're in good shape there. And again, I'll report at council, but we had a very successful ambulance service review, which takes a significant amount of time. We began in July and submitted all our documents by the time required, which was September 28th. And again, we had, I also and continue to participate in the assessment center working group. Page 9 9, we look at our community paramedic program. Again, if we look back to 2017, when we started with just a single individual, utilizing one vehicle, working with the GAIN team. Now we've received significant funding in 2021 to increase our community paramedic program to staff 4 full-time community paramedics. We do have a commander in place to oversee the program, which is Chris Parrish. So we've hired our additional community paramedics, and those community paramedics have been responsible for delivering the homebound vaccines and actually doing in-home swabbing for individuals either needing going for surgeries or they're just residents that are homebound with symptoms. And I just included the fourth quarter because that's when we really ramped up our CP program. We had just in the fourth quarter 542 visits to clients in our community paramedic program. And at any one time, we usually have about 100 clients who are rostered. So some we keep getting new ones, and then some end up coming off our roster. But at any one time, there's usually around 100 on the roster. And our emergency management. Again, we completed our training in the spring. And it's been difficult the last couple of years to do the training, but I managed to get a good presentation from Dr. Ogilvie from the University of Ottawa. I know it was over my head in a lot of times, but it was very interesting. His take on the mRNA technology. We completed our exercise in the fall, and we used Twitter lots and the website to deliver messages to the public. And so all required documents were submitted to emergency management prior to the date of December 31st. And we've received our compliancy letter as of the end of March. So that's my annual report for the year. If there's any questions?
Well, for me, no questions, but just a recognition that your department has had a really challenging time over the last couple of years, and you've taken on responsibilities far over and above what you were doing in the past, and you're all to be congratulated. It looks like you're doing a fabulous job, and we can't thank you enough. So I'd ask that you pass that on to all of your staff.
Will do. Thank you.
Look for comments or questions, Councillor DeVolen.
Well, the question, and I share the warden's accolades for you and your team, what they've done. Emergency management, was that just for EMS or across the organization? I know that technically with our emergency management teams, when we're in a crisis, it technically ticks the box. So beyond the EMS, were they included in that training with the group, the committee there, and whether you want to answer it or Mike on that regard?
Well, this year, emergency management, they came last year. Everyone was exempt from an exercise because we were live, and this year we received a letter that said even being live did not exempt you from an exercise, so an exercise was required. The education piece, again, each local municipality has their own municipal emergency control group, which are responsible at that point for their own individual training. So we did our own individual training and exercise as the county municipal emergency control group.
That included all of the departments, not just EMS. Chief Wade, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, emergency management, yes.
Councillor Rao?
Tim, again, you guys just do an awesome job under unbelievably ridiculous circumstances that most people would run from, never mind go to. So thank you for that. My question is more so related to with the uptick that we've got right now with COVID and its absolute uncertainty as to where it's going. You mentioned the fact that you were, and again, now we're talking about the possibility of a fourth vaccine to certain people, and I would assume many of those people are going to be housebound. Is it our plan to go forward with assisting those people both in testing and the vaccinations as required for the foreseeable future, or where would we stand on that?
Yeah, we are planning that for those individuals who wish to receive a second booster or fourth dose, and they are homebound, that we'll deliver that as per guidance from our local health unit.
Councillor Kennedy.
Excellent job, Chief. One question I had, one flag, so not with me, was your problems is the offload delays encountered at other services and us being drawn into doing calls in other service areas. Has there been any talk amongst the other EMS services about how to address that? I mean, you're all up almost 50% over last year of doing calls in other areas, which impacts our ability to service our clientele. So I just wondered, the offload delays at the other hospitals, we're seeing pictures in the paper of every ambulance in Toronto tied up at a hospital, and we come in and get out and we're up first. Just seems to be that it's a growing problem and it's going to start to impact our own clientele here. Just wondering if there's any progress in that.
They're looking at several options to try and alleviate some of the offload delay. Some is they call fit to sit. So patients are transferred to an emerge department if they're good enough to sit in the waiting room. I think that's sort of the concept there. We noticed a real, over Christmas time was when we really noticed a crunch in offload delays. I think it was sort of a perfect storm. COVID was rampant. They introduced a new system called Epic into the hospital systems, which I think kind of slowed everything down until everyone got used to using it. Lately, yeah, we still have some offload delays when we get down to the receiving facilities, but we seem to be working through them okay. But where we get what happens is if the local crews, say in Lindsay, are on an offload delay and we're leaving, that's why we get sent on a call, because we're the closest vehicle trying to get out of the city. And yeah, it's sort of a province-wide issue, and the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs are working with the province to work on different solutions. But right now we just have to live with it and try and just buckle down and get through it, and see what new plans and alternative destination plans come up for patients.
Mr. Redder.
If I might, I don't want to speak out of turn, but the best case scenario for all of that is a CT scan in Haliburton County, and there may be in the near future. I know Tim has been gathering data and sharing that data with HHS. But we spend many hours outside the county, traveling up and down the county roads with ambulances. And so they're not available for emergency calls inside the county. And so the best case scenario is a CT scan here. From a patient care standpoint, that would be wonderful, where the patients can actually have that diagnostic tool nearby so that they don't have to suffer that trip as well. I know that the county council is establishing a much stronger relationship with HHS, and I think that's one area where we hope that there's conversation, because that would be a real game changer for patients in Haliburton County, doctors in Haliburton County, and certainly the paramedics as well.
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Little chunk of change for one of those things, I think, though, right? So, about the paramedicine program, is this year one of that? Like, we were already in the pilot program, and we were already doing paramedicine, and then we got an extra amount of money. So can you just remind me where we're at in that paramedicine program? And I just sort of highlighting it on a personal note. I have a family member who is one of the recipients, and it's amazing. It's an excellent program.
Well, just to highlight, I guess, the history, in 2017, through Community Support Services, or HHS, from the LIN at the time, we received base funding for the one community paramedic. So we had applied for that. Several areas applied for it. I'm not, well, I won't pat myself on the back, but I guess what we submitted was accepted. There's only two areas that received, Scarborough and us at the time. What that did is allow us to be part of this phase 2 because we had an existing program. So when the new funding came from the long-term care ministry, and that started, the first funding we received was, the first quarter was January 1st to March 31st of 2021, and then annually thereafter. So March 1st is their fiscal year. So that funding is scheduled to end in March 31st, 2024, if it doesn't continue. But yeah, it really the funding started in January, but it was very difficult to even utilize that funding for the first quarter. We just didn't have so a lot of that went back, but starting March of 2021 is when we started to really gear up the program.
Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Follow up, yeah, if I may. Well, I'll pat you on the back, or probably we all will. Like it's a great program. It keeps elderly people in particular at home and checked on, and the communication between them and their doctor, like it's just so I certainly hope, and I just couldn't remember where we were in the program, so sort of like halfway through. So I hope that we have the data or the support that the province continues that, particularly in rural Ontario. That's great.
Well, and that is one of the things that the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus is putting some emphasis on, to try and see that continue across the province. Go ahead, Mr. Rutter.
That's what I was going to say. I guess that what we have though across the province is, a number of programs that look a little bit different, and the funding model is a little bit different. And so I know that the Eastern Ontario Paramedic Chiefs are looking at, sort of a standardized program and what that would look like, and then hopefully long-term consistent funding that could come with that. Because as the chief has indicated, there are no promises after 2023, I believe. So, but it makes an incredible difference in the community.
Sure does. Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much, Chief Waite. And again, congratulations, and pat yourself on the back all you like, and all the folks that work with you.
All right, thank you so much.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive this report, please? Councillor Roberts and Councillor Schell. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Schell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole received for information the 2021 year-end report.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up are some reports from our Director of Corporate Services. Morning, Andrea.
Good morning.
So first off, you've got some post-retirement benefit plan information.
Yes, so as per PSAB regulation 3250 and 3255, the county is required to record a non-pension post-retirement benefit liability and benefit expense on the financial statements. So for that, the county retained the services of Dixon Actuarial Services to value that liability expense as at December 31st of 2021. They found that the non-pension post-retirement benefit accrued liability as at December 31st was $368,200. That resulted in a net expense for 2021 of $24,300.
Are there any questions on that report? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it, please? Councillor DeVolen and Councillor Kennedy.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on actuarial report, non-pension post-retirement benefit plan as at December 31st, 2021. And further, that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the report on actuarials non-pension post-retirement benefit plan be hereby approved.
All in favor? It's carried. Next is your check register for March.
It was a smaller one for March as we were waiting for levy payments to come in. Our March check register totaled $480,553.38.
Any questions on the check register? Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillors Roberts and Shell.
Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on the check register for March 2022. And further, that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the check register for March 2022 with checks, EFTs, and PAPs totaling $480,553.38 be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, the payroll register.
We had 3 pay periods in March with net direct deposits totaling $690,355.51.
Any questions? Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors Kennedy and Shell.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the staff report on the payroll register for March 2022. And that it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that the payroll register for March 2022 with net direct deposits totaling $690,355.51 be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks very much, Andrea.
Thank you.
All right, next is the IT status report, and we'll bring Mr. March in. There he is. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Warren Danielson and members of the committee. So this is just my standard IT status report, giving an overview of the number of incidents the IT team has dealt with and the status of our projects. One quick note, I just saw one error there on the project list. Just a quick note that the MS Office upgrade project is due for June and not April. Other than that, I don't think there's anything in there that I need, or I guess if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
Are there any questions on the IT status report? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor DeVolen and seconded by Councillor Ryle.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives for information the April 13th, 2022 IT Department status report.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And next is under planning and environment, our corporate climate change adaptation plan, and I believe we'll be bringing in Corey McKay or their director of planning, Mr. Stone, or maybe both.
I think it'll be both, actually.
All right, let me just move my screen around.
Good morning, Mr. Stone.
Good morning.
And good morning, Corey.
Morning.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So we're presenting a draft of the Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan, as was seen in the February meeting of Council. So since that time, it was presented to each local council for review and comment, and those comments are summarized in the report. Ultimately, there were no changes to the draft, so just looking for the final stamp of approval.
Do members of council have any questions on the draft plan? Councillor DeVolen.
Not a question, a comment. Thank you for all the work you've done at the county level to do this and involving our lower tier municipalities to see this move forward. So thank you, and I'm supportive of it.
Any other comments or questions? Well, I echo what Councillor DeVolen is saying. Thanks so much for all your work on this, Corey. I know it's a big project, and you've got to bring a lot of people in and get them to agree to it. So it's been a challenge, and you seem to be moving things forward quite well for us on our behalf. Could I have a mover and a seconder on the recommendation to move forward? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Shell.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole recommends to Haliburton County Council that the County of Haliburton Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan be approved, and that staff be directed to distribute the final draft plan to the local municipalities for approval.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So nothing under personnel. So we've got a couple of reports in tourism. So we bring both our Director of Economic Development and Tourism Manager in, or just our Director of Economic Development?
I think our manager is on vacation, a well-deserved break starting today. So I think we're stuck with Scott.
Well, lucky girl, and then we can deal with just Scott. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Warden and members of committee.
So first, you're going to tell us about Hike Halliburton and what you got.
Yeah, so just a quick update on Hike Halliburton. In the past, we just wanted to let you know that staff settled on a date, September 21st to 25th. Based on feedback that we've heard over the last couple of years, we're going to go with the smaller hikes that were well received. Hopefully we've moved beyond whatever wave of COVID potentially could be there at that time, but it allows us to provide some protocols to that as well. One tweak that we are going to try and make this year, just with Tracy and the team talking, is we're just going to try and link the hike to some more culinary opportunities and perhaps promote a little bit of shopping as well, and any other events that are going to take place through the county at the time, just to try and circulate people throughout the county. Obviously, we love that people are participating and taking advantage of the outdoor amenities, but we also want to try and get people spending as much money as possible in the county. I'm happy to field any questions.
Questions or comments about the options that are being presented in the recommendation? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to support option B. I think that's probably a good thing going forward. But one of the concerns I've had over the last few years with the hike is that people could register as soon as it opened with sort of no commitment or obligation. So it would show hike full. And then I've volunteered and I've participated on some hikes, and you would get there and it wasn't full. So we talked at one point about like having a minimal charge instead of saying a donation, like having and I know that just didn't feel right to charge people to come on a hike. So I don't know how we can get creative to whether we keep people's emails and remind them. Is it possible to send out something like the day before the hike? If you like, how do you unregister? So what would happen, Scott, is registration would open. I don't know, the rest of county councillors can help me with this, like say June, as early as June for September hiking, maybe July, I don't know. And some real avid folks would get on and go boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, a lot of people don't know what they're going to do 2 weeks before, and everything was full. So I don't know how we address that or what other county councillors think about that.
Through you, Warden, if I may, I'm happy to chat with Tracy and the team, and I'm sure we can figure out some ways to help deal with that, whether that's following up with registrants, creating a waiting list. I know Tracy and I have gone back and forth about just even a small registration fee. So I can chat with them, and if we land on something that might change how we approach this, I'll just bring that back to committee so they're aware of the direction that we're going.
I really like the idea of tying the hikes in with other opportunities that are available in the county, and particularly, you know, some of the culinary opportunities. So I like seeing that option. Councillor Ryall?
Yeah, the idea of having a waiting list is not a bad idea either. And I don't really kind of support the cost, although I guess if that's the only way we can do it, then that's the way we can do it. But do we have any kind of an idea as to how many people physically register, and from that, how many actually attend? And why am I asking that question? Because in many kinds of events that I've got involved with like this, I don't like to use the word over-register, but I don't know what else to use, because you're anticipating a number of people that don't show. And so consequently, if you know you have about a 20% people that don't show up, and I'm hoping that number is too high, and you're allowing for 100, then you might take in 110 or 115, knowing that some of them will not be there. And then combining that with a waiting list might be a way to do it. Again, just a thought, because I know that sometimes when I'm on a waiting list, I find something else to do.
If I may, through you, Warden, what I can do is bring it up to the group. I'm not totally familiar with kind of the percentage on people that have registered and not showed up. I think we probably can pull that data, and then we'll put our heads together on the best approach, and we can circle back with committee just as kind of an information as here's how we're going to tackle this, if that's okay.
Councillor Shell and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Warden. I'm wondering how much of an accounting nightmare would it be to have a registration fee set up to register, and that it would be reimbursed if you actually show up and take the hike? Take the hike. Do the hike.
Through you, Warden, I'd have to ask our finance department. It might not be a nightmare. It's just probably logistically would be a little time consuming, but if that's the best approach to ensure that people, when they commit and register, they show up, then so be it. It's all about, again, right, making sure that the people that register are there, they're present, and we're not missing out on opportunities for people that might have come if we hadn't known someone was not showing up.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. So one way that I was thinking of is not necessarily even financial, is that if we kept the emails of the people that had registered, and whether it be a week before, a reminder, don't forget your hike is coming up, like if there's a mechanism to do that. But if you're not able to attend, click here. You have to be able to unregister, and then the hikes open up. That's what I'd like to see on the website, so that because I don't recall that there was a way to unregister. So you register and say July or whatever it was, early, and then a week before you say, oh, I can't make it. And it wasn't really about weather. So, and the one last thing, I really want to see some hikes on the rail trail. So I'm thinking maybe I'll offline just talk to you, Scott, directly about organizing something to really promote our rail trail. And of course, because it's linear, it might incorporate a bit of a shuttle service. So in the past, we've had some hikes that there was a specific fee for. One was horseback riding. It was a hike and a horseback ride. So you had to pay the owner of the operation that ran the horseback trail thing. And also the Haliburton Forest had one that was the walk in the trees. Well, they do that all the time, but there's a fee for that. So I'm wondering if we could do something that was a fairly long hike on the rail trail, but that incorporated a bit of a shuttle service. So if that's okay, if I talk to Scott offline about that idea.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? Well, you're hearing support for your option that's being presented. You've got a little bit of food for thought and some things to check into. We look forward to hearing your next report. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Shell.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole receives the April 13th, 2022 report on Hike Halliburton Fall 2022. That it be recommended to Haliburton County Council that staff be directed to proceed with option B for Hike Halliburton Fall 2022.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, next is the something that's new and sounds exciting, a partnership in a tourism and business summit.
Yeah, so just wanted to, with this, just make committee and council aware as this gets publicized over the next couple weeks and promoted, just so you're aware of what our role in the event is. So we've had conversations with Haliburton basically since I've started and Tracy started, gone back and forth on some thoughts they've had on bringing their stakeholders together as we're kind of slowly exiting COVID in particular, and bring some opportunities for networking and education and learning. So we've worked with them to kind of develop a program on a tourism and business summit. So it's obviously being driven by the Haliburton group. So there's a tourism focus there. We work with them to ensure that it's open to all businesses, because in future years, ideally, we want to run this again and kind of change what the theme is every year. And what we've committed to them is they've kind of outlined an itinerary for us, and then Tracy and I and Tom and Eric, through our connections, have reached out to various organizations to build out that agenda package and what the breakout sessions look like, and utilize our relationships to bring in a keynote speaker. Just a quick note too, we just had a brief conversation with Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization yesterday. This is right up their alley. So they've preliminary committed to, a small financial contribution to make the event happen. And then we're just working with all our local organizations and agencies that operate in the tourism and economic development field. And what we'll have is during some of those breaks and lunch and the kind of closing cocktail hour, those organizations will be present. They'll have tables there, they'll have staff there. So it's an opportunity for businesses to familiarize themselves with the organizations that are in the county and the surrounding areas that serve the county, what they do, making some contacts so that we can better acquaint people with all the services that are out there, and start providing a bit of a concierge service for them so that if they have questions, they know where to go. And hopefully we're moving forward. This is the first of an annual event. I think in a perfect world next year, we're looking at trying to organize it a bit earlier in the spring so we could tie a job fair into this. The Workforce Development Board really likes that concept. Just given the timeframes that we were under, we kind of landed on this topic. It was going to be really challenging to pull that together.
Councillor Dwalin.
What an awesome idea. You and Tracy are relatively fresh faces to our community. We're kind of coming out of the shadows of the post-COVID, not only the basis of which this year's event and a broader vision for the future. This is something we absolutely need. And some of those silos or walls that build up between groups and stakeholders in the communities, this is a great mechanism to see that there's less and less of that goes on in our community. So bravo, and I'm wholly in support of this, Scott.
Thank you.
One question before I go to Councillor Royale. I'm just interested in hearing about the transition from what we've previously been calling the stakeholders group to Haliburton, and if there's been a smooth transition, and if it's primarily the same group with just a different energy running things.
Yeah, I think it's been fairly smooth. Obviously, Tracy and I are still fairly new, so we're still kind of listening and gathering information. I think the commitment we've made to them is to share with them what our kind of operational plans are and what our operational mandates are, after budgets have been approved by council. And we've had to, again, just kind of reiterate to people that, how our processes work. They're open to that, and we've just made it really clear to people that we're here, we're happy to listen, and work with people where we can find them. I think this is a great example for them, particularly. We've talked about that we can, share success with council. They're kind of the arms and legs on getting people there, and we've used our expertise and relationships to fill out the agenda for the day. So it's been positive. And I think a great deal of credit really goes to Tracy and just her approach with interacting with people and developing relationships.
Good to hear. Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like this is going to be good for us. My question is related to the workforce development. And what we heard from Search this morning, or not Search itself, but about Search this morning, with the ability to get people from wherever they need to be to a central location, would that be something that might be general information that could be given out at a session like that, where if there are challenges logistically getting people to the training sessions, regardless of whatever they might be, that the opportunities like that are available, and possibly either in the form of a handout or in the form of some kind of a presentation from those people, that employers who would be short people would know that, hey, I'm not responsible, or I don't have to be responsible for getting the people there. I just have to get a list of people who need to be there, and kind of bring that into this program as well. I mean, if it's not part of the overall scope of the program, fine. But I just thought I'd mention it in light of what we heard this morning.
And through you, Warden, we've had some really positive discussions through some of the networking opportunities that have been presented to us through the Workforce Development Board and the colleges and universities surrounding us. I think it was touched on this morning, the challenge that we face, I think, in the county is that a lot of the services, their home base is Peterborough and Lindsay. So we're just working with them on trying to, again, as has been identified, if we can find a central location and fill out a registration list, how do we get those organizations, those training opportunities here for our businesses and our employees? And we're just kind of building that out. It's food for thought on how we can think about the day, and if that's available to us, then we'll explore that opportunity. I think as registration is promoted, I'm suspecting there'll be some more organizations that will approach us about having a presence there that day as well. So like we said to a lot of people, we're open to any ideas, and it's just really about how we can make this work and make it beneficial for the attendees.
Any other questions or comments? Could I have a mover and a seconder to move forward this? Councillor DeVolen, and seconded by Councillor Roberts. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor DeVolen, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole received the April 13th, 2022 report on 2022 Haliburton County Tourism and Business Summit for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, if it's all right with members of council, we'll just go through the information on the procedural bylaw and then take a break before our closed session. Will that work? Okay, so over to you, Mr. Rutter, to talk to us about the procedural bylaw.
Thank you. I know this is the warden's favorite topic.
Oh,
so.
I love it.
Committee will recall that when we brought forward a report for the 2022 meeting schedule, we had a blank around the month of December because we weren't sure how everything would fall out with the new dates in the Municipal Elections Act. So we now have a better sense of that. And but it does certainly impact our inaugural meeting and our warden's election process. So what we have tried to outline here is a proposal on how to do that process so that the new council and ultimately the new warden can be installed in a timely way. As I've outlined in the report, the new term of office commences on Tuesday, November 15th. It's my understanding, I've checked with all of the local clerks and I believe that most of the local municipalities, if not all, will be holding their inaugural that day. So we're proposing that we hold our inaugural meeting 1 week later on Tuesday, November 22nd. And the election process and the nomination process, the nomination process and the election process for warden would fall out as follows. It would be on Tuesday, October 25th, or approximately around then we would find out the results of the election. And we would find out who was elected mayor and who was elected deputy mayor in Dysart and Minden Hills. I think you're all aware that Algonquin Highlands and Highlands East actually choose their deputy mayor from amongst their council. And so that adds a little complexity to this, because we won't actually know who those people are until the inaugurals are held on the 15th of November. So on Friday, November 4th, because we do have a nomination process that we follow, the clerk would send out nomination forms for the position of warden to all the mayors-elect from the 4 municipalities, the deputy mayors-elect from Dysart and Minden Hills, and all council members-elect from Highlands East and Algonquin Highlands. So that way, if anyone is interested in holding the position of warden or putting their name forward for the position of warden, they would be able to do that. We would ask that those on November 16th, we would be notified of who has been selected to serve as the deputy mayor in Algonquin Highlands and Highlands East. And then we would ask that the completed nomination forms for the position of warden would be due to the county clerk on November 17th. And the reason we need that is because the procedural bylaw requires me to publish a report saying how many valid nominations I have received. So I would propose to do that report well into the night, probably, hours of overtime on my part, but I would propose to do that report to be published on the agenda on Friday, November 18th. And then of course the meeting would be held on Tuesday, November 22nd. I guess further to that, we'd be proposing that our inaugural or our first regular council meeting of the new council would be held on November 23rd. And we would propose a regular council meeting on December 14th as well. I hope that makes sense. It as I say, it adds a little bit of a complexity, but we didn't want to take too much time after the new council was installed before county council was installed and a warden selected. So we think that accomplishes all of those goals. But I would ask if there are any questions or concerns.
Just from Algonquin Highlands perspective, I know it's been mentioned several times, and I think there's a greater appetite for us in the next term moving forward with getting in place an election that would elect our deputy mayor at large, which I think is probably a better proposition, and that would reduce some of these problems. Complicated, but definitely doable. Councillor DeVolen?
Yeah, a great bit of work to make this all functionally work. My comment, CAOs don't get paid overtime, do they?
No, they don't. But well.
But they like to let us know periodically that there's something over and above that. Councillor Roberts?
Just at least Dysart doesn't have to change a meeting, or county doesn't have to change a meeting. Just kidding. This is great. Yeah, sure, it's fast paced, but when it's known and it's known in the public, and it's actually a lot better than the dreaded lull in between election and the December meetings, where particularly, local and county council had a meeting in November where you could possibly sit beside somebody you just defeated, and it's a little awkward and you're not very productive anyway. So yes, it's fast paced, but the dates work. You put thought into it, and yeah, I think it'll work.
I would just note that our schedule that was adopted by county council does include a meeting for November 9th. So now we could, based on council direction, we could make that a tentative meeting and only hold it if there is business that is required to be undertaken. My concern was having too much time without a council meeting, and that if we needed to have a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement or something that was time sensitive, we wanted to make sure something was on the schedule. But again, I would consult with the warden, and if council wishes to make that a tentative meeting, we can only have it if there is business to be done. One thing it does give is an opportunity to say goodbye and thank you to outgoing members of county council. That is one thing that we found it useful for in the past.
And we would like to have great big bowl of punch to serve, alcoholic content guaranteed. Okay, if there are no, okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Roberts, you have
Well,
another
just-
question or comment?
Yeah, just also, I think Mike might be seeking more direction to the summer meeting schedule. I know I've brought that up before. Like Dysart put it in our procedural bylaw to actually, we canceled our committee the whole meeting. So Dysart is now the last few years only gone to a one meeting. And I know that it's in the county, but every time I've been on the county 7 years up to now, and I don't think we ever had a July meeting. So I'm just wondering, for the sake of staff and knowing, and like, what do people, we still need to sort of decide on the summer schedule.
And the virtual meetings.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I jumped that part too.
But did you want to speak to the virtual meeting process, Mike?
Well, I think it's when we were developing the provisions around virtual meetings, it was a brand new thing. We were just in the process of learning how to do it. We really hadn't contemplated hybrid meetings at that point. We now know that all of those are possible. Council put some limitations on the virtual participation in meetings, and my sense from the meeting the other day, or the last meeting when you talked about returning to in-person meetings, is that you wanted to have council and committee of the whole in person to the extent we can, depending on COVID and other things, but those meetings would be in person. Other committee meetings may continue to be virtual or at the discretion of the chair. But then also, do you want to allow more flexibility in terms of participation virtually? It was limited to 3 times, very specific circumstances. And I look for direction whether you want that changed or not, given you now have experience with virtual and hybrid meetings.
It's been a learning experience for all of us, and we probably have mixed feelings about virtual versus in-person meetings now. But personally, I liked the restrictions around the flexibility of people. I mean, we're giving everybody an opportunity to be able to attend a meeting virtually if need be, but there are some limitations to that. I'd like to see us continue on with that. Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, speaking to this, and it's quite personal. I really believe that we need to set up a section electronic participation when we're extended periods of time that we're doing electronic meetings. I was, brought on the carpet basically here in January for doing a Zoom meeting from out of the country, and I had examined the procedural bylaw. There was nothing in there that stated I had to notify the clerk when I was out of the country. Whether I'm in Halliburton, whether I'm in Toronto, or whether I'm in Florida makes no difference to me when we're in extended periods of time of electronic meetings. We haven't followed any of the directions in our procedural bylaw for the last 2 years. We don't, we aren't notifying you as the clerk 24 hours before a meeting. We have not declared, as we're supposed to, that we are alone and connected to the internet on a secured network. Those are all changes that happened outside the procedural bylaw. I really think we've got the opportunity here to set up almost an A and a B plan. A, when we're in extended periods like we have been for 2 years, there's a certain set of rules, and if it is, whatever it is. And then B, I'm quite happy with this in normal times. 3 meetings, you're allowed to Zoom in or whatever, that type of thing. But I think the last 2 years have been difficult for everybody, and we need to be able to address that in the future without having to go on. And it's not fair to the warden to go down into unknown land to try and corral the old guy here, right? It's like, so I tried to keep it light, but it hurt, and I'll be quite honest about that.
Yeah, and I don't think there was any intention to put anybody on the mat. It was just kind of a notification thing. I like the idea of having sort of 2 options depending on the circumstances that we're in, because if we ever have to go again into an extended period of virtual meetings, rather than having to rewrite revamp the procedural bylaw every time there's a change, I'd like to see us set up something that kind of covers both eventualities. Other comments? Councillor DeVolen.
Well, I'm going to be impolite in defense of my colleague, Councillor Kennedy. The whiners that are out there that want to complain about whether participating from A, B, or C is irrelevant. And I concur that if we can institutionalize this, even in times of like COVID or other disasters, and that there is some element of that we can have some discretion for a certain amount of meetings a year, that we can still participate. I'd far rather have an engaged member of council, and I don't care whether it's county council or municipal council, that's with us virtually, that somebody that's a councillor that sits in their seat and doesn't say anything for a whole meeting. So anyways, I'm not going back to the poll, so I have the liberty from every once in a while to make these kind of comments, and you're probably going to hear more of them between now and election day.
Well, we look forward to that, Councillor DeVol. Councillor Rowell?
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree with Councillor DeVol, because in some cases, for those of you who are much younger than me, my spouse and people, oftentimes we get caught in a situation where we have to be somewhere. It's not related to me personally, but I have to get my wife somewhere, and it makes it impossible for me to attend the meeting. So to be able to participate virtually from another location, although me personally is not having a problem, would be awesome. And I think if it was in the procedural bylaw, and I have no problem with notifying people ahead of time, because I mean, if you're going to go, if you have to go and have a procedure done, unless it's an absolute emergency, you're going to know a reasonable period ahead of time. So having that flexibility yet defined in the procedural bylaw, to me, I think is almost mandatory.
Yeah, I like the idea of the notification, and you know, I think that we are looking for a little bit more flexibility, as opposed to us agreeing to, you know, somebody being gone for an extended period of time. There was an example over the last 4 years where someone, no, actually it was the term before that, where somebody wanted to be gone for the entire winter and call in for the whole winter. And to me, you're not looking after your constituents like you normally would be if you're away. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, thanks. Just a reminder, is do we have a limit on the number of people that could participate electronically? I recall on even just in the library board when we were looking to do this, but long before COVID, long before just the one library board member wanted to make sure that they could call in, phone in. So we had it that I think it was only 2 library board members at the most, and it was the first 2 in. 3? Okay, thanks, Cease. I'm not sure, but there was a limit, and I'll tell you why. Like, what if in a perfect scenario, and I didn't tell you I was going on a holiday, and it's, you know, the day before a meeting, and 4 county councillors are virtual and 4 are sitting in the council chamber. So do we have a limit on it? And do we have a sort of, if we do put a limit on it, how many can attend virtually? Is it sort of the first request in are the ones, and then on the 3rd or the 4th request, on the whichever it is, the answer is sorry, no, you'll be considered absent?
That's a good point. You know, that we try and work something like that into it, like almost quorum related. Mike, you had a thought?
Just that there are no provisions in the procedural bylaw at this time that would deal with that.
What's Councillor's thoughts on a limit on the number? Councillor Roberts is suggesting 3. Councillor Allen and then Councillor Shell.
Well, my personal opinion on it, I don't think it really matters whether you're there or not. How many of us are in person today? And yet we're conducting business and we're making decisions and we're very, very cognizant of what needs to be done. So the fact that somebody may or may not be attending virtually, again, they went through the process of being vetted for why they're not there. They're obviously informed, most of us are, of what it is we're going to be discussing today and up to speed. So if the circumstances are such that 4 cannot make it that particular meeting, then I don't know why that would have any impact whatsoever on our ability to make decisions.
Councillor Shell.
I would say though that to Councillor Ryle that we're all here today because this is our only option. So I would say that if there is an option that we, or that meetings are back in person, I would like to see quorum in the chambers. And then if somebody had to, come in via video, that would be completely different. I don't personally think we're going to see this happen so often that it's going to be that big of a deal, but that's just my thoughts. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to take advantage of it. Nobody that's on the screen currently anyway. I guess we don't know who's coming in, but I think most of us will respect the rule and follow procedures as they've been all along.
I like the idea of the quorum as well. I just, for some reason or other, I think that's important. And the other thing I think we need to make sure during the course of meetings, when we make this change, is that if we're going to have a closed session, that the candidate or the individual who is away does make that declaration that they're alone, that they're on a secure network, and because that's important, and I'm sure it will become more important as time goes by. Just ask Mr. March. Go ahead, Mike.
I don't mean to participate in the debate, but one of the considerations that I think we talked about when this was first passed was in the event of inclement weather. And so if there's a requirement that there be a quorum in the council chambers, then I guess how do you pick which ones have to drive through that freezing rainstorm in order to get there? And then what happens if they can't?
Councillor Shell.
See, to me, that's the prime example when we would all just come onto the screen then. Right? Like we would all be on the same level playing field then, that, if buses are canceled or we believe the roads are that bad, that we would all just come in this way.
That makes perfect sense. There's a notification issue, just to make sure that everybody realizes that the meeting would be from home, but looking out the window would be a pretty good indication. Does that are we creating too many administrative challenges, Mike?
I'd have to think that through. Certainly, ensuring that a quorum comes in. I'm not sure who would approve. Would it be up to the clerk to approve those absences on a first come, first served basis, or would it be up to the warden? My preference would be the warden, but the and then there are the IT aspects of that. But I think I'm less concerned about those now because we are probably going to continue broadcasting our meetings on YouTube even after you're in person. I'm almost certain we will. I guess I'm less concerned about that because initially we talked about, well, if IT have to get in here and set up and do all the stuff that they need to do, then we would really be required to have that notice. I think we could probably turn that around pretty quickly given what we know now. So I'm not as concerned about that. But the whole quorum thing, I would like direction on who would approve that.
It would seem a little awkward for the clerk or deputy clerk to be giving approval to a member of council to do something one way or the other. Councillor Kennedy and then Councillor Rao.
Yeah, I like the idea of in an emergency, we already have that provision. So maybe if we go with quorum and then we have while every effort shall be made by members of council to attend in person, attendance via electronic means shall be permitted in the following circumstances. So it's laid right out there. So that gives you the the flexibility of council and administration that normally we want quorum. And it's up to you, Madam Warden, if you decide that there's 4 people for some reason decide to take that one off, that's maybe some discussion happens with the warden and the deputy warden, and you come up with a solution to that particular problem. But otherwise, it's set in our procedural bylaw now that things like natural weather event, emergency civil protection restrictions or guidelines is set out by the province. So a lot of the language is there, just a little tinker, I think, is all that's needed.
Councillor Al and then Councillor DeVolen.
Yeah, I think in the way the library board works, I think the maximum is 3. Councillor Roberts, could be 2, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. However, if there's more than that have to join virtually, I think the way that's set up is you can participate in the actual meeting, but you can't vote.
That's right.
I think it's the way it works. So if that's the case, if that were to become an issue with us, would that mean that the councillor who would be whatever that number might be, if it's 2, then the 3rd, if it's 3, then the 4th, would they be able to attend the meeting but not vote, or would they not be allowed to attend the meeting at all?
To me, if you're allowed to, I think that's a rather odd rule that the library board came up with, because if you're allowed to attend the meeting, like we're all allowed to vote, I don't see why we would say to a member of council that you can't vote. It just seems a little counterproductive to me. Councillor DeVolen and then Councillor Roberts.
Well, I'm going to go back to first principles and kind of the municipal act, which sets out in my mind, kind of like the separation of church and state, that the CAO's the head of the staff organization, the warden represents the head of council. So in terms of notification and making the decisions with respect to whatever the rules are for councillors in attendance of the meetings, I think that responsibility clearly lies with the warden, not with the clerk or CAO.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes, I will agree with that for sure. And I think the library board, it was because some of the stuff we're talking about was set out prior to COVID and prior to visual electronic meeting. It was a teleconference. And I think the thought was that a certain number of people, it just makes it awkward with a couple of people in the room and a couple of people on a phone call. We didn't even have a hub thing. So it was just that's why I think we set that rule. But you know, I'm happy to go either way, whether we want to stay quorum or not. I can't imagine. I think once we, go back to in-person meetings, that the desire will be to be in person. You're more productive, but right now, like Councillor Shell said, it's because 100% attendance is electronic right now. It's going to be a little different chairing a meeting, as you are doing, Warden, and I'm considering, what I'm going to do at Dysart Council, to have some people, what I'm looking at them at a table, and some people on the screen, and making sure everybody's participating. It is a little bit of a juggle. Yeah. So I still think at the discretion of the warden, but that we could limit it to 3 can attend electronically.
Any other thoughts at this time? So Councillor Kennedy, go ahead.
If we make sure we have lots of cinnamon rolls in the morning, I'm sure that the attendance will never drop below 5.
Well, Councillor Shell will be here for sure. Okay, you've heard our comments, and we look forward to you bringing a draft back to us for further discussion. I have no doubt. Councillor Roberts?
Did we decide about the summer meetings?
Gosh. Thank you.
I know I brought them up too early and now we got off track.
So what we're proposing is that we have only one meeting for both July and August. Unless there's, some emergency or, business needs to be conducted, we can call a special meeting. And we have a couple of proposed dates. Are there any concerns or issues with that? It could very well be that we're lame duck during that time, and it's just a challenge all the way around with the election. So it seemed like a good option. Okay. So could I have a resolution recommending that we get a new draft brought forward to us at an upcoming meeting? Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor DeVolen. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor DeVolen. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole received the April 13th, 2022 procedural bylaw update staff report, and that staff be directed to prepare a draft bylaw incorporating the committee direction for consideration by Haliburton County Council.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks very much. That was a good conversation. Okay, I'm going to suggest that we break until 11 o'clock and then have our closed session then. Councillor Roberts?
Do we move to go into closed and then break?
Oh,
What's easier for IT?
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Well, let's move to go into closed now, and then when we come back, we'll be in closed session. Could I have a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Councillor Shell and Councillor Rail.
Moved by Councillor Shell, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Committee of the Whole enter into closed session for the following reasons: the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
All in favor? That's carried. We'll see you all at 11.